last video, we got ourselves a running LS3 swap 1969 Camaro, but there's still plenty to do. So let's get right to work. So in the spirit of this project, I remade my list here, kind of organized it, cleaned some stuff up since we'd crossed a bunch off. But here's the major stuff we gotta do. We gotta finish out the fluids, measure and get the drive shaft cut and balanced. We have to make a dash for our Pro Dash, Holley Pro Dash. AC lines, install the radiator and coolant lines, fan and wiring, put the seats back in, put the center console back in, make an intake tube. That's just what I got so far. There's plenty more, but I think I'm gonna focus on these two first, the drive shaft and the radiator lines, because that's really what we need to run this thing for longer than a minute or so. Obviously you guys heard this thing run for 30 to 45 seconds, but with no coolant in it, we really don't want to run it any longer than that. And then once it's running, we need to connect the transmission to the rear end. So we need a drive shaft. So I'm gonna focus on those two things. I bought the radiator and fan months ago. So let's get those unboxed. And actually, while you guys were away, I measured for the drive shaft and I just picked it up from the drive shaft shop, so we can talk about that in a second as well. But first, let's get my radiator unboxed and talk about that and what the plan is for that and the drive shaft. All right, so here's my radiator and fan from, what is it called? Auto City Classics, I believe. So there's the fan, shroud, and here's the radiator. I left the cardboard on it to protect the fins while we're doing all our test fitment. This should be a direct bolt-in radiator for a first-gen Camaro 67 to 69. And what makes it an LS swap radiator is a couple things. Most important one to me is that the coolant radiator in and radiator out are on the same side. I'll show you guys up there in a second. It's just easier on LS motors when they're both on the same side. A typical small block Chevy, one would be over there and one would be over here. Also, even though we're not using them, it does include trans-cooler lines if we did want to use those. All aluminum, obviously, should keep our LS nice and cool. Got a radiator cap coming for it. And again, to me, the big thing is that it's gonna bolt right in. Should bolt right in. Same thing with the shroud. Fan, I think, is like a 2500 CFM fan. I really don't think that I like this chrome, this fake, it's plastic, but it's got a fake chrome finish on it. So we might end up shooting this with some matte black, satin black, help it blend in a little better, but we'll see. So that's first on the list, is getting this radiator in so we can start figuring out what we can do with radiator lines. And here is our drive shaft. Fresh back from the drive shaft shop. So we got our nice Sonax 1350 billet slip yoke for the T56 Magnum. Had the drive shaft guy put a brand new 1350 U-joint in there. He welded on the 1350 yoke and shortened this thing to my measurements and put the 1350, a brand new 1350 U-joint on the differential side as well. This thing used to be a nice, like, chrome plated drive shaft. Obviously, since we had to shorten it, it's not going to be like that anymore. Not a big deal to me, honestly. I'm not a huge fan of the chrome anyways. So, I mean, I think what I'm going to do is just give this a really nice coat of, same thing as the transmission, probably a coat of silver paint. So yeah, on that note, and these two things, let's get to work prepping and painting this so we can get it in the car. I did already do a rough fit up of this, and I think that I actually measured right, you know, measured twice, cut once. And I think this is going to fit perfectly in the car. So let's start getting this thing prepped so we can give it a nice coat of paint so we can put it up in the car so we can officially have our drive line connected to the rear end. Then let's get going on fitting up this radiator and fan so we can get some coolant in this motor and run it for more than a minute. chugging right along. Radiator's in, basically a bolt in. I'm really happy with this unit. Basically just had to move these studs over. I think they were, there's probably 2 different radiators offered for a 69 Camaro, one for small block and one for big blocks. Had to just move these studs over to the pre-existing holes in the radiator support here. And this thing bolted right in. Just had to temporarily unbolt these fuses here, then they bolted right back up. Fan shroud painted satin black, that looks awesome. We riveted on our shroud here and then bolted the fan to it. So this looks really nice. And believe it or not, upper radiator hose and lower radiator hose are from the stock 2010 Camaro. We're still getting parts, still getting our value out of that 2010 Camaro. So grabbed a radiator cap from Advance Auto. This is an existing overflow tank that is loose. The previous build had this done, so I just need to tighten this up, and I think we've got ourselves an overflow tank. Got some NPT brass plugs in there. One thing I did overlook is the steam ports on the LS motors. So I think I'm going to swap this one out for a nipple and then run just a short line right over there. Other than that, cooling system is done. Even reused the heater hose clamps. Basically just had to shorten these like an inch on each side. And we're good to go. I haven't spent any money on cooling system hoses. This is all stuff that was either in the car or from 2010. So really excited about that. Also got our drive shaft painted and installed. New U-joints all around. Looks like I measured correctly. About an inch of stick out with the suspension unloaded. So I think we're going to be good to go there. So our drivetrain is officially connected to the rear end in our 69. So what's left to do? Need to wire up a fan relay to one of the outputs in the Holley Terminator. Basically tell the fan to turn on at a certain coolant temperature. We got to fill this thing up with fluids. And then I think we can get it up to temperature. See if anything leaks. See if we have any other problems. Let's go take a look at the list. Got to do the fluids before we start it again. Fan and wiring. And I'd also like to build an intake tube. I think those are our gotta-dos. So I've got 2 different pipes here. I originally ordered a straight 90 to come right off the throttle body, but what I'm actually thinking I'd like to do is this is a 4-inch aluminum intake tube. Is this 45 with a 90-degree elbow right off the throttle body, and then a 4-inch air filter right in the fender. So I'll show you. 90 off the throttle body, 45 down over here into this fender, grab some cool air from behind the headlight, and the filter will go back here. So I think that's going to be super simple. So probably got to do that because we have to get our manifold absolute temperature sensor somewhere in that intake tube. So we got to tap one of those fittings in and weld that in. So yeah, let's keep chugging along, keep working on this, and I'll get back with you guys in a little bit here. Once I've got those things done, we can fire this thing up and maybe even pull it outside under its own power. We'll see. right, I got updates. So I got the fan in, got it all wired up, loomed nice and neat, mounted the relay over here. Down there, you actually can't even see it anymore, where that little green fuse is. Power's run directly to the battery, and then linked in, I actually ended up redoing part of this harness right here, right into the Holley fan output number 1. So that's all nice and neat. I tested the fan, I think you guys saw that. Just triggered the ground, fan comes on full speed. It's a polar fan, so it's pulling hot air through the radiator. So that's all working like it's supposed to. Filled the radiator with coolant, no leaks, half mix of distilled water and Dexcool coolant. Clutch fluid, painstakingly got the clutch bled using my speed bleeder. It was tough to get the master to bleed. Ended up using my compressor and compressing the reservoir there, and then pumping the clutch a few times. That bled the master, and then the speed bleeder actually made it pretty easy. So we got a clutch pedal that feels good. I think we're good there. Filled up the power steering fluid. We double checked the oil. Obviously the transmission's full of fluid. Rear end I've never even touched. I assume it's got fluid in there, but cross that bridge when we get there. Built this intake, quick 90-degree elbow, silicon elbow, 45-degree 4-inch aluminum tube, cut to length, welded on and made this custom bracket here that mounts it to the radiator support. Nice and rigid, high flow 4-inch air filter. And then I even plumbed in my manifold absolute temperature sensor here. I ordered a bung to weld onto this thing, and for the life of me, I cannot find it in this mess over there. But then I realized that since this is just a naturally aspirated application, there's really not going to be any pressure in here like there would be with a boosted application. So a quick tap, and you know, this thing threaded right in. And it's, like I said, it's either just going to be in vacuum or at atmospheric pressure. So that should be fine. Really happy with how this intake turned out. Looks super nice. But yeah, I think what I'm saying is we're ready to start this thing again, and maybe let it get up to temperature. Make sure nothing gets too hot. You know, the headers are probably going to burn some stuff off. Anyway, we got the drive shaft in there now. We can, if everything goes well, we might even be able to, you know, put it in gear, make sure the clutch is adjusted and working properly, make sure the wheels spin like they should, and maybe, just maybe, even back this thing outside under its own power for the first time in almost 9 months now. I'm going to double check everything, then we'll fire this thing up, let it idle, see if we can get the thermostat to open, make sure the cooling system's bled, make sure the fan comes on when it's supposed to, and we'll go from there. Double checked everything. I think we're good for now. Let's give this a shot. All right, here we go. Every time. I'll shut the car off briefly. I literally can't even be around this thing without earplugs in. It is deafeningly loud, but everything looks good. Just want to shut it off to check some. First one being this yellow line right here is our alternator. We are charging at 14.6 volts, which means I wired the alternator correctly, so that's great. This kind of sloping red line is coolant temp. Looks like we got up to about 167 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything else looked good. Oil pressure looks good. I didn't see any leaks. I just wanted to check on the alternator, double check nothing was on fire, nothing was getting too hot. So let's fire this thing up again, see if we can't get it up to, I have the fan set to come on at 195 degrees. That's the Holley factory default. So we'll see if they come on and see if we can't bleed the cooling system, and we'll go from there. So the fan came on like it's supposed to. Everything seems to be running fine. Alternator's charging. Upper rad hose is hot. Lower hose is getting warm, I think. Maybe I should have let it run a little bit longer. There might be a bubble or something in the cooling system. Might need to get it to run a little bit longer, but this is awesome. Other than it is obnoxiously loud, obviously open headers, but clutch works. I checked all the forward gears, reverse gear. Obviously it spins a little bit on the lift even with the clutch in, but the clutch feels good. No leaks that I can see. Fan came on, alternator's charging. We're chalking that up as a win. Let me double check a few things. See if I can't make sure that the thermostat is opening, and I'll get back with you guys. Man, it is hot in this garage running this car with open headers. Whew. Oh man, I think she's starting to run a little rich. It's burning my eyes. But holy well boys, I'm chalking that up as a huge win. So I did what I should have done to begin with. Filled the radiator, or topped off the radiator using my vacuum pump. So it basically pulls a vacuum on the whole cooling system. Make sure there's no bubbles in there at all. I think we had a bubble down here near the thermostat, so it might not have been opening, but that's nice and warm now. Upper rad hose is nice and warm. Fan came on at 195. Temp got to about 198 before it started coming back down to 195, 194. So cooling system works perfectly as far as I can see. No leaks as far as I can see. Clutch works, transmission works, goes into every single gear. The wheels are spinning. We could move this thing right now, back it out. Couple problems. No driver's seat, wires everywhere, and it's dark out. So I'm gonna call it for tonight. I'll check in with you guys maybe in the morning. I gotta head out of town late tomorrow morning, but I might, if I can sneak in some time, back this thing out, at least see what it looks like in the sun for the first time in 9 months, move under its own power for the first time. But I mean, everything looks good. Like I said, nothing is leaking, nothing got hot. I'm psyched about this. Can't wait to get those black valve covers on there. They've been chilling over there for 6 months now. But this thing is looking really good, sounding really good, running really good. Anyways, I'm gonna stop babbling. I'm just excited, but see you guys in the morning. I'm back from my work trip. Ran out of time the other morning, but we got time now. So the other day we got this thing up to temperature. Fans came on, temperature came back down. Cooling system appears to be working perfectly. Clutch seems to be working just fine. Also tossed a seat in there. Just one bolt halfway threaded in. Loosely bolted the steering wheel on. Bled the clutch a little more. Got my earplugs ready. So at this point, I think I'd like to get this thing off the lift because it's kind of hard to open the doors. And I'd like to move it over here so I can kind of finish up, cleaning up some of the wiring on the inside. And this is a great time to back it out, see if it moves under its own power. Big milestone for an LS swap or any big project like this is moving under its own power again. So let's fire it up, throw it in gear, see if this thing will move out of the garage and come back in. else to say other than we've got a running, driving LS3 6-speed swapped 1969 Camaro. You guys saw it with your own eyes. The car moves under its own power, goes into all forward gears, reverse gear. You know, I even grabbed second coming up the road. This is more than I've ever driven this car, actually. I guess it's about the same. When I first got the car in the very first video, I took it down my little private driveway here to the end and back, and that's basically what I just did. So we just doubled the miles on the car. Now it's got, you know, more than double the horsepower too. The much newer Chevy small block. Everything's awesome so far. Knock on wood, but I've not spotted a single leak from anywhere. Not the cooling system, not the power steering system, which works perfectly, by the way. Power steering works great with the custom hose we made here. No leaks that I can see. Alternator's charging, as we mentioned. Cooling system works. Fan comes on at 195. Car starts cooling down. No oil leaks. I mean, that went really well. Other than the fact the car is obnoxiously loud because it has no exhaust, and it's on a very basic tune because there's no O2 sensor to kind of correct for fuel. It runs awesome. So yeah, huge milestone here, getting this thing to run and drive, move under its own power. There's still a lot to do. Obviously build an exhaust. Still need to put my painted valve covers on that have been sitting over there for months. Clean up some more engine bay wiring. We've got an entire spaghetti mess in here that needs to be cleaned up. Probably need to figure out something for the shifter and boot and all that. Need to put on our Holley digital dash so we can actually see what's going on with the motor, maybe without using the laptop. Yeah, plenty to do, but that's gonna do it for this video. Running, driving, LS Swap 69 Camaro. I think that's a good stopping point, but I'm gonna jump right into the next one right after this, start knocking more of this stuff off the list. So make sure you guys tune in for the next video. See you then.